Hello, everyone, and welcome to another My Music. Now, I'm going to let you all know that I wasn't sure that I was doing this right now because my guest turned up early, a week early, but that's fine. We just roll with it on this. I'm sorry, I'm not embarrassing you. I'm just saying
No,
that's just the way it goes sometimes.
I am always early, but not normally a week.
Well, yeah, I want to talk to you about that in a minute, about spontaneity and all of those things. But first, let's have a little video from Analog Trash, and then we'll come back and we'll meet our guest today. Does that work with you? Stay there.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming. I have to check that my mic and everything sounds okay with you. Does it? Is it sound okay? That's good. Had a complete disaster last week. I did a whole interview. I thought I sounded fine. Got to listen back to it afterwards. I sounded dreadful. My mic was clipping all the way through, etc. And I think I know what it was now. It had gone away from my Shure mic, which was in front of me, and it had gone to the webcam mic, which is dreadful. And that was it. It's kind of switched over. Technology does that sometimes.
Technology does. It does what it likes. I don't have headphones on. Is that
Well,
wrong?
you sound fine, so that's fine. Otherwise, I would have alerted you to the fact that it wasn't.
Okay.
Bryde, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
How long have you been making music?
A long time. At least 20 years.
Which is nothing really in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
No, it's nothing. It's if the Rolling Stones have got anything to go by, you've got another 80 years ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, by the time I'm that age, I'm sure I will be living that long.
Yeah.
People will be living that long.
What got you into music in the first place?
I started by having piano lessons at about 8. And I think I just wanted to be a pop star, which I have definitely not achieved. But Kylie Minogue, early Kylie, we're talking like proper early Kylie. I wanted to be Kylie.
Curls.
With the ringlets, with the curls and the hat.
Was that because she had Jason? There's a way of saying it. Is that because she had Jason Donovan? Yeah.
No. At that age, I did not care about men, especially not Jason.
You literally, it was just
It was because I wanted to be her, because she was on Neighbours, and I liked watching Neighbours a lot. I don't think it was even that I wanted to sound like her. She just looked like she was having a really good time, and the songs were really uplifting and fun.
Did you used to love the theme tune to Neighbours? Because I did.
Not really. It wasn't my favourite thing about it, I have to say.
No.
Not really.
I quite enjoyed it when I was young. I mean, looking back, that's a bit sad because it's not one of the best, is it? But there you go. Yeah. So you wanted to be Kylie. Was there anyone else you wanted to be at that?
I mean, I know you're supposed to say really cool people and pretend that you like whoever. The age of 8, but I didn't. I mean, my dad played a lot of Fleetwood Mac in the car, and I really loved Fleetwood Mac as well. So, if we're going to mention someone cool and a bit more musical, I would say they were a big inspiration. And then as I got older, obviously there's a ton. I could just list a load of other bands, but yeah, I always really wanted to write songs. I would dance around with my best friend in the front room in front of my parents. And I mean, the most embarrassing thing we ever did was my globe. I had a globe that had a lamp in it. We put it in the middle of the little spare room, my spare room bedroom. Sorry, I can't speak suddenly. It's been a spare bedroom that my parents had. We danced around it while trying to film it with her parents' camcorder to Lisa Stanfield's all around the world, been around the world.
Yes, what a great
Been
song.
around the world,
Well,
now,
then,
yeah.
I can find my baby.
Exactly. So we tried to make a music
Oh.
video to someone else's song at that age. In fact, I don't even think we had the camcorder. I think we were just filming it in our minds. You know, it was enough to just do it. But I can imagine what that would have been like if we had phones. But yeah, you know, it started off like that. It started with pop, and then as I learned the piano, and I loved classical music for a while, but I really didn't like practicing. I've never liked practicing, and so as I realized I could make things up and just kind of, you know, noodle away on the piano really, and then start to compose properly, that's when I really started to love music and love the instrument. And so that progressed to making up tunes, and then to songs, and then kind of getting all my friends involved in that, and it just grew from there.
Because you mentioned Lisa Stansfield, do you remember Lisa Stansfield and Cold Cut before Lisa Stansfield went solo?
No,
Do you not?
I don't think so. I'm maybe not old
People
enough.
hold on. You don't?
Oh
No?
yeah, I know that tune. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
was her.
we need
With
to mention
Cold Cut.
someone contemporary now to counteract all these 80s references.
Okay, so are you a big fan of Boy Genius?
Yes, love Boy Genius. In fact, Catherine Marks, who produced that album, mixed my first album.
You see what we did there? That was clever, wasn't it?
It was very clever.
I would feel that that's probably your kind of music these days in terms
I
of
think,
contemporary.
yeah, I really
artists.
love Lucy. Sorry, I'm talking over you a little bit. Lucy Dacus or Lucy Dacus. Her out of the three of them, her music is my favorite. The music that she makes on her own, I find her voice really interesting and her lyrics sort of memorable and funny. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, no, she has got a lovely voice, and she's and more of a wit, maybe.
I think there's a wit to it. Yeah, I think that's what I like, and it's a little less airy. It's more kind of
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it. I loved her song. One of her early songs that did really well. I don't want to be funny. I don't know if you know that one.
Yeah.
Funny anymore or something like that. I just find that one really makes me smile.
Is humour quite an important part of music to you?
God, you wouldn't know it from listening to my music.
Well, yeah, but you sometimes get the sense that some people whose music doesn't necessarily, you know, emanate humour are actually quite humorous people underneath it.
Well, I'm not particularly serious in between songs. I like to counteract some of the more angry, dark stuff with some sort of light-hearted interactions with the audience in between. And yeah, as a person, I'm not deeply serious, I wouldn't say. I mean, sometimes I could probably take myself more seriously if I, you know, some people would say that. But so yeah, humor in general is really important to me. I like to laugh.
I think that's quite important, actually, especially if you're going to go into some darker areas in your music, to have that kind of humour in your life.
Yeah, I think so. And at the gig, I think people need a little bit of respite from deeply emotional
from
bits
that.
of music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people have said before that it's the juxtaposition can be difficult. Maybe they want to, but everyone's just different. And really, if I get on stage and try and be someone I'm not, it's not a fun experience for me. So, so I just allow myself to be more natural.
Oh, yeah.
I have done a 5-minute stand-up set before. I did a course.
Have you?
In stand-up comedy. Yeah. Well, for a while when I was touring, it was going, like, the chat in between was quite, I don't know, it was going really well. And some friends were like, oh, people were really loving your chat. You know, I think everyone says this. You know, you can say, oh, I'm just going to tune my guitar and people will giggle as if you said something funny. But I was trying to be humorous, and I scripted a little bit of it even, and sort of tried to do it in a natural way, you know, changing it each night, but scripting it a little bit. And I really enjoyed that element. And I've always wanted to kind of have a go at it. Just for me, I always say it's like my idea of a bungee jump. Like, I don't want to jump off a cliff with a stretchy rope tied around me, but I'm perfectly happy to go up and do something terrifying like stand-up comedy for 5 minutes just to see what it's like. I think playing on stage is maybe not scary enough anymore, so I thought I'll have a go. And I only did it twice, and then I had to make my album, my second album. And then straight after I finished it was almost COVID sort of started, so I didn't end up doing any more gigs with the comedy. But I still have it in the notes section of my phone. It needs updating because comedy gets a bit out of date sometimes when the reference points are a bit old.
That's cool.
But yeah, occasionally I like the idea of doing it again.
I want to know what you learned because, well, I did it for a while, bit of stand up. In fact, I wrote radio comedy for quite a while.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love radio in particular. I love writing for radio because anything can happen. I was trying to explain it to a friend of mine the other day. I used to do this show on a Friday, and it was part of a series of shows that went throughout the week. And they were magazine style shows in the middle of the afternoon. And they were all interviewing. It was on local radio, and it was all interviewing local celebrities. And I got to the point where I was just so sick to death of it. And I can tell you which episode it was as well. I had to interview someone that saw themselves as a floral artiste. And basically, they were a flower arranger. And I ended up calling them a flower arranger because I thought, God, you're so pompous. Honestly, what's all this about? And so I said, look, can I do a different thing on the Friday? Because I was working with comedians from the local comedy set unit. And what I want to do is I want to do the same show on a Friday, but I'll make all the guests up. And I'll use comedians to come in and be these people. So I'll play it straight and then they'll do stuff. And I was trying to explain this to a friend. And I said, I had guests on like this guy that could play Spanish guitar whilst juggling 5 filing cabinets. And they went, what? You can't do that. I said, yeah. And I had another guest called Airskin Reboot who could get inside a milk ball. And they said, how do you get inside a milk ball? I said, you can't do it, but you can do anything on radio. And I love that about it.
You can do anything. Yeah.
Do you feel like music's a little bit like that? Do you feel like you can sort of do things that you can't do in real life in music?
That's a good question. Well, it is real life. I feel like
it's part of real life, but is there an element to music that's kind of magical and mystical and something else that you can't normally do in real life?
Yes. I mean,
yeah.
I like that I get to, if we make music videos, for example, which we don't do anymore that much, but when I used to make music videos or do some interesting photo shoot, I like the fact that I was doing something I would never normally do in real life. So I would, go underwater in a dress. That was my previous band. But no, actually, and this band. Obviously, like getting in water and dressing. So I like that you can take ideas and make them. There's a fantastical element to certain things. But yeah, can you do things with music you can't do in real life? I guess you can create stories and characters that aren't real. And you can play out your anger and say things to somebody that you might not say in real life. So you can tell people your story in a way that you might not share in real life.
See?
So yeah.
It wasn't such a stupid question after all, was it?
I didn't think it was. I was just trying to think of a way to answer it.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about your new album. And let's start with the cover. Where did that idea come from?
So the most recent album or the EP? Because it's quite old now, so it's 2 years old still.
Well, no, let's start with the album and then we'll go to the EP because the EP, we can talk about the merch once we get to that, right?
Yes.
See, so that's great.
Yeah, still, I love the album artwork. It's by Niall McDermott, really great photographer who I was following for ages on Instagram, and I knew of actually before that because he has some great photo books. I think when I did a course, my photography course a few years ago, I looked at him quite a lot during the course. So yeah, it was really exciting when he agreed to offer to let me use that photo. And it just fitted perfectly with the music, I think, with what I wanted to convey.
It's an interesting photo, isn't it? Because we don't see your face on that album cover, and what we see is legs.
Yeah, it's his son.
Right.
He's like 13 or something.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Because it's going back to the what's the story kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, it asks you to imagine how that relates to the word still, I think, and to love, which is is kind of the main theme of the album. Yeah, I have put my face on the front of the first album, but in general, I like to create an image which is thought-provoking rather than put myself on it, because I don't know if it says anything. Even with Like an Island, where I was on the front cover, I feel like it was saying something, because the way I was standing in the middle of this, what is basically a desert. So that said something about the music and about the story behind the album. So yeah, I tried to create a sort of an element of the album. It has to be part of the album, part of the story, part of the concept.
I just suddenly was thinking, while we're talking about that, about sort of like bringing those elements together and kind of fantastical role play, and then I was thinking back to what you were saying about Kylie Minogue and whatever, and then I was sort of transported to your video that you did in a laundrette.
Mm-hmm.
So was there an element of sort of, you know, Levi Jeans, Nick Kamen about that as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love that.
That must have been, you know, quite an iconic image at the same sort of time as Kylie, wasn't it? That whole Nick Kamen.
Yeah, thing. I mean, I definitely did not consciously think that,
but now you're thinking about it.
Now I'm thinking it completely. Yeah, I mean, I was quite young when I was into Kylie. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't a teenager. I was a little girl, but so I don't remember a lot of references from back there, but yeah, definitely. I love that it's in the Barbican, that old laundrette, and it's often used in photo shoots. And I'd been there to do some photos with a model who I was photographing, and just kind of had it in the back of my mind. I think I really love the colors, because I think it's all quite turquoise, isn't it? And that's one of my favorite colors. And yeah, I just had the idea for it when we were making the video, and we managed to hire the space for a few hours. So it seemed like a good idea.
Do you remember the Nick Kamen song, the big hit? Do you remember that?
I don't think I do, no.
Each time. Yeah, the very soft voice. You break my heart. Do you not remember that?
No.
Oh,
maybe if I heard it, I would.
Yeah, you will now. Yeah, you'll go looking for it on Spotify afterwards to go, oh my word, that song. Honestly. It was very, very something about that whole area. There were a whole load of men that suddenly had very soft voices, almost effeminate voices in sort of pop music. Don't know what it was, just suddenly appeared. If you think, even like, you know, you think like Milli Vanilli and all of that, it was just really Brother Beyond. There was a whole era of like Climby Fisher, just real soft voices. We seem to have gravitated and gone completely the opposite, so that we stay on trend with like modern music, so that you know you really fit in with that. We seem to have gone completely the opposite way now. We seem to have a lot of real guttural voices now. We've got people like Rag and Bone Man, and you know Teddy Swims is back out with, you know, a real sort of powerful voice, and then there's all these guys that you know, Benson Boone and whatever, that's screaming his head off in the middle of the song. It just seems that we've gone about.
And Lucy Dacus kind of started that kind of gravelly big voice thing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think with women it's different though, because you've got Clairo, or Billie Eilish and Arlo Parks, and a few other people that are singing very softly.
Going back that way, you see? Yeah.
So yeah, there's something different there.
Yeah. Are you a Billie Eilish fan? Are you
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I always give her albums a listen when they come out anyway. Her stuff.
Yeah. You don't fancy doing a video crawling up a pile of bras and whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Yeah.
If someone had the budget. If we had the budget, why not? I actually really like that track. I think it's pretty. I mean, I don't listen to pop that much. But
what on a sort of night in with Bryde? What would you listen to typically?
I've been really lazy recently and haven't discovered anything particularly new apart from what you can't avoid, like Charlie XCX. But I guess had a bit of a playlist on the way to a festival this weekend, and we were playing Julia Jacqueline, who I love, and we were playing The National, a bit of a mainstay on my playlist when I'm driving. Who else? Let me see if I can find my playlist.
Glad you said Julia Jacqueline. Julia Jacqueline's last album is amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah,
amazing.
I really love her. What else was I listening to? Nothing's going to come up into my head right now. We were listening to Radiohead. I feel like I was just listening to everything I've been listening to since I was 16. Yeah, a ton of other things like that. I know The Cure. We were listening to a little bit.
Oh, why not? I think you'd probably quite like things like This Is the Kit and Rosie Plain and stuff like that as well.
I like This Is the Kit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. There you go. See, we're kind of met there in the middle of all of that. Now let's talk about the EP, because the EP has got, not only has it got an EP that you can go and listen to, there's a coffee mug. I mean, for me, that is.
There is. There's a mug.
Right.
I haven't bought one myself yet because they're made to order these.
Have you not?
Recent batch of merch. I'm going to order a load of stuff to take on tour in November, and so then I'll keep one. But I'm not sure. Because they're made to order. I haven't ordered myself one.
Is there not someone in your life you could get to order you one? Could we not?
I'll get a discount if I order my own merch, though, which is nice.
Yeah, but do it. Yeah, but you could do it that way where you could actually say to someone. It's like I say to my mum each year. I say, could you get me that for my birthday? Because she's useless at doing birthday presents.
I think I'd probably rather I get a massage or something like that than a mug. But not that people shouldn't get one; they definitely should.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust my mum to order me a massage.
Thai massage is quite.
No. I tell you what. No, seriously. In all seriousness, actually, it's because my sister does sports massage.
Okay.
Yeah. So if my mum ordered me a massage, all she would do is get my sister to do it for free, and so she wouldn't have actually put any effort in.
That's not a good birthday.
No, that's rubbish. So I'm not.
Bride mug instead. There you go.
What's that?
You get a bride mug instead.
I think so. I think that could work really, really well.
You get a set of 6 for when people come round. You all have matching.
Set of 6. Yeah. It gives me a good excuse to go and break some of the others, which are pretty awful.
Yeah,
well.
charity.
Yeah. Tell us about the EP then. What inspired you to get the mug? It must have been something important about the EP for you to.
I think the mug is probably the least important bit of the EP, but what inspired me? It was available. I could get one, so I just did a bit of artwork rejiggering and suddenly.
But you say that, but I think people get mugs for things that they feel very, very proud of.
Oh.
Right. Think about it. Think about the things that you get put on the mug. You normally get put on the mug things like pictures of your children.
Right, I see what you're saying now. But I don't have one myself, so if I can understand what you mean. Yeah, I think I have a mug because I could, because they were made to order. So I don't have to have boxes. I don't have to turn my spare room into a little mini warehouse. But the EP was, it was just really important to me, as is all my music. When I make it, I don't know, it comes from somewhere quite natural, kind of emerges into the world, if that doesn't sound too pretentious. And so I like to honor it. I actually think the print is my favorite thing that you can get with the artwork on, because I really like the artwork. It, it's not particularly deep, but it was a bit of a concept to me to take this picture of flowers, beautiful roses, and sort of shift them so that you could look at it from, different ways. And change your mind just feels like a powerful message for me anyway. Yeah. And it means a lot of different things. Well, not a lot. Yeah, it does. It means a lot of different things. I think from reading a lot about neuroplasticity, and which is the study of how we can change our brains, and often just by thinking differently, which simplifies a lot of very difficult challenges. But for me, I just kind of wanted to share. And I think it's important that we're allowed to change our minds. So I feel quite passionately that the way to improve some of the big problems we have in people being very polarized on many different issues is that we give people space to change their minds and not shame them too heavily. That doesn't mean we're going off on a whole different tangent right now, but for me, it's just important to give people space to change and to help people change, rather than to outcast people for not thinking the same. And that's not to say allowing abhorrent thought processes, or sympathizing with people who are not accepting or loving to others, but there's some way to go. We have some way to go in allowing people to change what they think about things and helping them to do that.
That's fine. No, do you know what? That fits in with my whole philosophy on things. So that's great. My business is actually called A Better Way of Life.
Nice.
Yeah. And we have another podcast called that. And actually what we talk about on that is literally that journey. I do it with someone that runs a training company and who is also neurodiverse as well. And we talk a lot about assumptions, because I feel one of the biggest problems we have in the world right now is that we all make assumptions about other people. We kind of think about everything in a very egocentric narrative, and what we don't do is we don't think about how that's received by other people, and we also don't think about how other people think when we put out information. And I think that causes a lot of issues, which is this is an incredibly relevant conversation given all of the riots and everything else that's gone on over the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not excusing absolutely no way to excuse people's behavior when they act like that. But yeah, there's got to be some way to bring people over to the right
bring you over to from the light side, from the dark side. Yeah, but it's like actually that. It is, but it is actually about. It's about, from my point of view, it's about giving people space, but it's also entering that space, being prepared to learn yourself as well. Because I think if people come at a space thinking, well, I'm going to listen to what you say, but I'm not going to adapt at all, then actually you're closing walls right before you start. Because it's all about finding, to some extent, it's all about finding some middle ground. And to find some middle ground, there's got to be a shift on both sides, even if it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because it depends what we're talking about. And without going into detail, we can, in some situations, there isn't a middle ground really, is there? Because but there's it's really tricky to talk about. I don't know. I know a lot of people feel, I mean, I mentioned nuance in a post on my page, my Instagram page recently, and it then saying how unpopular nuance is online because it doesn't get clicks, and that post got the least clicks, and I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I'm not for becoming a centralist on things, but I'm also for listening and trying to understand people's context.
It is difficult, and it's difficult when you live in a world where polarization sells, and it
really does. That's
promoted.
The problem.
Yeah.
That's what I want people to be more aware of, is that it's so easy to just go with whatever gets you your biggest tribe. Like, what will get me the most people supporting me? What will make me feel most validated? And which, unfortunately, these days seems to be clicks and likes and shares. What will find me the biggest group of people? And people are always vehemently one way or the other when they're very angry about something. And we're quite angry when we're hurt, and so that's a really difficult place. And anger can be a really useful emotion if it's channeled into action, but that action has to be changing things for the better. And so when that anger is channeled into burning a car, that that in the middle of the high street or whatever, that's not useful anger. That's just and I'm not saying we can reason with people that do things like that, or with someone who stabs a bunch of kids in a dance class. We can't reason with either people sometimes. But yeah, swinging from one side to the other and just damning and shaming either side of these arguments it's just not helping. It's making it worse. So I don't know why we're talking about politics, but anyway, my stance is not to accept people, but it's to try and change things in a more compassionate and intelligent way than shaming anyone.
Sorry, I should have warned you before we started that actually, I only do intelligent interviews, so that means I don't just ask you what your favourite biscuit is, and then get you to plug your latest single, because frankly, there's loads of other people that do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's good. Anyway, I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all right. So imagine how dull and boring it would be if that's all we got all of the time. Unfortunately, we do on a lot of commercial radio, which is sad, really. A big up, by the way, to anyone out there that's doing radio and actually, using your brain. Thank you. So I'll keep doing it because it's very necessary. To finish, I want to ask you a question which I've asked many of my guests in the past, but I particularly like this question because it always gets people going, oh, which is, what song do you wish you'd written that you hadn't?
For a minute then, I thought you said, which song did you write that you wish you hadn't? And I thought that would be a really interesting question.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I can think of some. What song do I wish I'd written that I hadn't? That I haven't. God, I mean, that is really difficult to say because
you didn't write it.
Because I wouldn't have written it, and then I wouldn't have maybe loved it as much, and maybe it wouldn't have been as widely known if that person hadn't expressed it in the way they expressed it.
Well, I tell you what, you covered one of my favourite ever songs, which is "Silent All These Years" by Tori Amos. Let's talk about that then. What was it about that song that resonated so much? I mean, because for me, that was one of my most memorable sort of musical experiences. I did sound at one of Tori Amos's first gigs in the UK, and I was stood about that far away from her when she was playing that on the piano, and it was just like down my spine because it was like, oh my God, no, I've never seen anyone do that, be so visceral with a piano before. And and it's like it was screeching out of her. So yeah, what was it about that song for you?
I think it was because it's about self-expression and about being quiet and not standing up for yourself. It's about her not standing up for herself in a situation, not feeling like she has a voice.
Mm.
And I sort of could identify a little bit with that and relate to that for a while. I've loved Tori Amos for years. So she was kind of, when I grew out of my pop, my little kiddie pop music phase, she was almost the next sort of obsession.
She was there waiting,
So-
open-armed with a set of songs that were brilliant.
Yeah, and she couldn't be more different, could she? Let's be honest. You got Kylie and you got Tori Amos. I mean, would they have curly hair in common? Nothing else, literally nothing else. So it was just, I knew I wanted to cover one of her songs, and it was just choosing the right one, which was really difficult. And I actually can't remember how I kind of decided on that one, but it fitted with the guitar. It just seemed to work really well on guitar. And I loved that I could kind of play my sort of clean, slightly gritty guitar sound on it and really make it a Bryde track. And so, yeah, and I think the lyrics are so, create such a visual, they're so full of imagery. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it was lovely to be able to sing them, really.
That's lovely.
And introduce a bunch of new people to her, because, I mean, it felt a bit funny, but like at least 3 people said they loved my new song, and I was like, it's not mine, but thank you.
That's great when that happens, though, isn't it?
Yeah, like thank you. But it was really nice to introduce her to a few people. I mean, she's massively well known, but that was a good experience. Oh, I think a song I wish I'd written, just to go back, is Sharon Van Etten's so the song by Sharon Van Etten's called Give Out. And you were saying I did a cover by Paul Weller. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I used to do that as part of, I think it's Warner were releasing some covers, and they were doing this cheeky thing where they were getting people to just make music for them. And but I've been quite grateful at the exposure it's had, because they put it on a lot of their big playlists. So that's been really nice. And yeah, I had a really nice time doing it. We put some cello on it, and I just arranged it in the way I wanted to, and it was a nice excuse to do a cover. So I've never really been into covers, actually. It's weird that I've released 3 now. I think, unfortunately, Spotify kind of makes you do that, but maybe not, unfortunately, because people get to hear some covers. So it's a nice thing to do. But until I'd done that one, I don't think I'd really thought about playing covers before, and I never used to do them at gigs. And even now, I don't play any of those 3, the national Tori Amos or Paul Weller covers at gigs. Maybe I'll play the Tori Amos one in November, but yeah, I don't want to play them.
If she turns up to watch you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually her mastering engineer has worked with me on something. I can't remember what Marcel. I can't remember what he worked on, but he has anyway. And I've used a mic of hers on some of my recordings.
There you go. So I've tinkered on her piano. You've used a mic of hers. And
and I've been on a tour bus as well, but it wasn't her tour bus. It was her crew's tour.
I see.
The boys will go on one, and she stays in a hotel quite often, outside the Albert Hall. Yeah, so Marcel, who has been a long time being her monitor engineer, is a friend of a friend now who owns a studio. So we got to go and see her play at the Albert Hall, and go backstage and go on the tour bus.
Bryde, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. We've covered everything. We've covered music. We've covered Kylie Minogue, Tori Amos, politics, mindset. Wow, nuance. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? Really? folks. You won't hear another music interview quite like this, and you might say, "Well, that's a fortunate thing," or you might have really enjoyed it. If you're one of the ones who's really enjoyed it, please do go and share it with other people. If you the kind that prefers the questions about what's your favourite biscuit and just talk about latest single, there's plenty of stations you can now go and tune in on where you'll hear that exact interview over and over again. Until next time, thanks to Bryde for coming on today, and thanks for you listening. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.